Look, this Secretary of State race is the gift that keeps on giving. Oh my gosh, we've got so much stuff to get to today. All right, dealer's choice, Jason. There's 2 Diego stories we can get to today, and they're both equally awesome. I'm going to let you decide which one we choose first. The first option is all the money he gave to his former campaign manager and the non-citizen deputy chief of staff. That's your option 1. And then last night, Diego and Engling and Shelton were all in the same room together giving speeches. Okay, we want to go with the speeches first. All right. Okay, so there was an event in McCordsville. You ever been to McCordsville? Yeah, McCordsville last night. And it was Diego, and it was Engling, and it was Shelton. I don't know where Rittenhour was. She was not a part of it. But there was a room full of people. I don't know if they were all delegates. I don't know if some of them were delegates. I don't know if it was a GOP club. I don't know what it was. But they were all there together. The way the format worked was they all got up and gave like 5-minute speeches. And then afterwards they said, hey, we'll hang around and we'll answer any questions you have. Now, I was told Diego, as soon as he gave the speech, he bolted out the door. Screw you people. I got places to go. But I watched the speeches. Abdul streamed all of this live. And I'm watching this speech list, and I talked with somebody who is very knowledgeable afterwards. Like, I was thinking this, and then I talked with somebody afterwards who is super into Indiana politics, knows all the players, is not affiliated with any of the Republican campaigns. And we talked for about 20 minutes about this. And this person said this unprompted to me, and it was exactly what I was thinking. When you watch the speeches last night, like, as weird as this sounds, I don't think it's over for Diego. Like, I'm watching this last night, and look, Diego is a complete bullcrap artist. Like, there's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. You watch him as an unaffiliated observer, right? I'm not, as in, like, I'm not working for any of the campaigns. Candidly, I'm probably not voting for whoever comes out of this time. So I feel like I can, watch this with an open mind. And I'm watching Diego, and he's such a bullcrap artist. Like, it's so obvious if you take any sort of emotional connection out of it. But I'm sort of watching the response from people, and I'm realizing some of these people appear to be still eating this up. Like, he's going on about things that are just ridiculous. Like, I stood on redistricting. I stood with Trump. I foreclosed primaries. I raised the money. That's our new slogan with Diego. I raised the money. Diego's all about the money now. The money Diego. That's what we're going to call him. Diego the money. And you're watching this and you're like, I think Banks might have screwed up big time. And hear me out on this. Watching Engling speak, I'm watching this and I'm going, this doesn't seem like a guy who has a lot of fire to do this. It's like a guy they've told, you got to find the fire. Because one of the things that Max Engling admitted last night, and by the way, if I were Diego or Shelton, I would be crushing Max Engling over the fact that he was a right-hand man to Kevin McCarthy. For some reason, no one's talking about that. Kevin McCarthy, the former hated Republican Speaker of the House. Why he's getting a free pass on that, I don't know. But England gets up and starts speaking. And in this speech, he essentially admits he's only running because Banks told him to do it. Like, basically what he said last night, if you guys want to see Abdul live streamed all 3 speeches. You can go to Abdul's Facebook page. I think he's got a public page. You can see all the stuff. He essentially admits last night, hey, some people came to me and they were asking me to run, but I went to Banks and I wasn't going to do it because Banks endorsed Diego, so I wasn't going to go against Banks. And then Banks unendorsed Diego, and then I went to Banks and he was like, yeah, you can run. And I'm watching this going, you just admitted in real time in front of all of these people, and it's live streamed on the internet, that you are completely subservient to Jim Banks. It's not like I'm running because I'm super passionate about it. It's not like I'm running because I felt called to do it. It's not like it's in my blood to fix all the stuff Diego screwed up. Yeah, some people came to me and I kind of wanted to do it, but I wasn't going to go against Banksy because Banksy's my meal ticket. And then, Banks got sideways with Diego, and then I went to Banks, and he said, go ahead and do it. What? You're admitting. It's not like it's some candid conversation. Engling admitted last night he's only here because Banks gave him permission to be here. He's not fired up about getting to work for you. He's not fired up about fixing anything. He's not fired up about being an independent voice for the taxpayers. He's telling you, I'm here because Jim Banks, my sweet government meal ticket daddy, gave me permission to do it. And that's what you're going to get for 4 years. If I'm a delegate, I now know that Jim Banks is running for Secretary of State. And what did we tell you guys? We told you the moment Engling got in this race. Max Engling's entry into this race is about Jim Banks taking full control of the Republican Party. That's what this is about. Vote accordingly. The guy admitted last night he's only there because Banks said okay. So on everything he does as Secretary of State, up to and including wipe between his butt cheeks, he's going to go ask Jim Banks permission. That's not the job of the Secretary of State. That is not the job of the Secretary of State. I heard nothing from this guy last night that is like, wow, he's really going to come in there and clean up the crap. And remember, that's what the Engling campaign is about. It's about getting rid of Diego, yet not exposing the crap. And so I'm watching these speeches last night. By the way, I talked to another person who is not affiliated with any campaign. This person is not really even super political. I told them, I said, hey, do me a favor, watch these 3 speeches and tell me, with no affiliation to anybody, this person's not a delegate, they're not an elected office person. I said, just watch these 3 speeches and you tell me, of these 3 people, if it were a job interview, who you would hire. Like if you were saying I'm hiring for a job and this is the job interview, the 5-minute spiel on why you should vote for me is the job interview, who would you hire? And about 20 minutes later, the person got back to me and said, not even close, it's Shelton. I said, really? He goes, oh yeah, qualifications, the thing the person would do, the things they would do in the office, the reasons they want the job. He says, not even close, I would pick Shelton. And I obviously agree with that. We've talked about that. This person did not say that because that's what I want to hear. I said, what would you, like, who would you want? Because I'm going to talk about it on the show tomorrow. What does an outside person who's not super connected to politics or not invested in it in any shape, form, or fashion, who would you hire? He said, absolutely Shelton, not even close. And this is what's so frustrating about the Shelton campaign is he is infinitely the most qualified. He is running for all the right reasons. He does want to take the politics out of the office. He does want to just administer the office. But he's so boring. And Dave, no sympathy for you, man. I love you. But I've been telling you for a year and a half, you got to find a pulse. Because that's what the delegates want. And unfortunately, these convention races become a personality contest. They should be job interviews, but they're not. They're not. And a guy like Dave Shelton is very quiet. He's very businesslike. He's very, I just want to go in and do the job. You know what he said last night? This was interesting to me, and then we'll get back to Diego. He said, after I'm Secretary of State, I'll probably just go back to Knox County and be the clerk there again. And I was like, part of me's like, really? And then I was like, well, that's actually super endearing because he said, I just really love elections. Elections are my passion. Having integrity in our elections is my passion. I'm watching this like, okay, I'm torn on this because you always expect like Secretary of State is a stepping stone position for many people. Or, you know, I'm using it for the next job. But this guy was like, Shelton was like, no, I just go back and be the Knox County clerk again. I'm really into elections. Like, he was like, I volunteer my time to administer recounts in communities. I was like, boy, I bet you're a barrel of fun on the weekends. But then it's like his wife owned the sex toy business, so he probably is a barrel of fun on the weekends. Why don't you be that guy, Shelton? That's what the people want. So coming back to Diego, I'm watching Diego give his speech last night. And of course, everything that comes out of his mouth is complete bullcrap. But he is really leaning into the amount of money he's raising, which is fascinating to me because some of the money, as we've talked about in the past, comes from really sketch sources. But he's leaning into this. He's going through all this. And I'm listening to the applause isn't everything. The applause isn't some end-all, be-all, whatever. But clearly people weren't booing him, as they should be. People are not. And I didn't get to feel like this is just some polite applause. I think there's people in there that are still eating up his line of BS. And the further you get from central Indiana, the more people are going to continue to eat it up because they're not going to be told what to do by Jim Banks, which is now clearly what the Engling campaign is. He admitted it last night. If I were Diego and I were Shelton and I were Rittenhour, I would clip that speech, that part of that speech he gave of him talking about how he's there because Banks gave him permission, and I would beat the hell out of him for the next 3 weeks. I would make sure every delegate, no, there are some delegates who will vote for him because he's a Banks yes man. There's no doubt about that. There's some delegates who will absolutely vote for him. They're the minions, the hangers-on, the people who want to elevate themselves. They will absolutely vote for him because he's a Banks yes man. But for the independent-minded delegate, especially somebody who's got to decide what to do if their candidate goes down on the first or second ballot, that's a great thing to have in your back pocket. With Engling, you're not voting for Max Engling to be Secretary of State. You're voting for Jim Banks to be a U.S. Senator and Secretary of State. Oh, by the way, if I'm Greg Ballard, if I'm Bo Bai, I'm clipping that as well and having that in my back pocket, and I will put that in an ad this fall. Absolutely. But as I'm watching Diego speak, I was thinking to myself, and again, afterwards, just happenstance, a very connected political insider, not affiliated with any of the campaigns, called me and said, what'd you think? And we were going through some stuff. And he said the exact same thing that I was thinking without me telling him, which is I bet right now there's a part of Jim Banks that really thinks he may have made a big mistake. And what I mean by that is this. I think Banks and his people are stuck right now. Notice it's been a week, and there hasn't really been anything hyper negative about Diego come out. Now, we'll get to this Capitol Chronicle article in a second, but that's not dirt. Like they're working off public record stuff that anybody can find. There's been no real dirt come out on Diego, like the India trip, like his palling around with the known felon, what's actually happened there, that went down for federal bribery charges, all of the voting in the county from where he took the homestead credit, all the big stuff. There's been nothing. It's been relatively quiet. And I think that's because Banks and his people are stuck, because I think Banks sold a bill of goods to a lot of people of, if we all bail on him, he'll drop out of the race. I don't think there was a plan B. I think plan A was the only plan, and I think plan A, because Todd Rokita, and I've heard this from a couple people, I've not actually heard the interview, but I've heard this from multiple people now, that Rokita was on, I think it was WoWo, the Fort Wayne radio station, on Friday maybe, and he kind of started hemming and hawing about Diego. And the problem these guys have is there's probably only an extent to which they can indict Diego, because there's a chance not only they might be implicated in something, but more importantly, their money might be implicated in something. And these guys are not going to choke off their money. They're not going to expose something on Diego that might look bad for a donor, because a lot of those donors also give to them, which we'll talk about in the next segment. And so I think if you're Jim Banks and you sold a bill of goods to people saying, hey, if we all bail on him, he'll drop out. He's not going to have any choice. And we'll hook him up. We'll tell him we're hooking him up with something, and he'll go for that. And then according to Abdul, Diego didn't go for that Because Diego was like, I ain't taking your guys' word for it. You forget, I'm a scumbag, you're a scumbag. We all know how each other operate. And I think right now there is probably, I don't know if panic's the right word, but I think there's probably some level of concern this guy didn't go willingly. And as I said a week and a half ago now, Diego called their bluff saying, you're not going to expose me. You can leave me, you can unendorse me, but you're not going to expose me. You're not going to demand Ryan Mears do an investigation into me. You're not going to demand the Inspector General do an investigation into me. You're not going to expose the real dirt because it implicates you guys, or more importantly, it implicates your money. And thus far, Diego's been proven correct because nothing has really come out on him of any substance that isn't available in the public record.